We've learned one of the suicide bombers in Paris was a young man from France with ties to Islamic extremism. French President Francois Hollande calls Friday's massacres an act of war and a horror committed by ISIS. Tony Shaffer, retired lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve, is with us now from Washington. And Colonel, we just learned that French law enforcement are now taking DNA and fingerprint samples from the dead terrorists to try and ID them through databases. What can you tell us about that process, and who are the likely culprits?
Well, obviously, the forensics is very critical to basically tracing back everything this individual does and his linkages. And that will include travel patterns and all that sort of thing. That'll give law enforcement and intelligence folks a great deal of information about who he was linked to. Essentially, it's link analysis and guilt by association, if you will. What we need to understand is how the network was working. I think this is one of the oversights that the French are going to either have to deal with directly or figure out how to deal with in the future. I'm not sure if they did not defeat the Charlie Hebdo network, or this is a new network, but clearly this individual that you're talking about was part of the cell which conducted these attacks. And this was a complex attack. We're talking about 6 separate attacks done with military precision. So I think it's very important that they do everything they can to determine exactly who this individual is linked to, what other cells he may be linked to. This may be only the first of other attacks, and more importantly to us, we need to figure out how this was undetected by the French for so long so that we can help our allies to prevent other attacks and, more importantly, prevent such attacks from coming here.
You know, ISIS, as you well know, Colonel, has claimed responsibility for this. What does that say, if in fact that turns out to be the case, about the power of ISIS?
Well, I think this is the issue we all have to take very seriously. ISIS is not the junior varsity as has been displayed by the White House. We have to understand that ISIS is well funded, they're well motivated, they have had essentially space to grow from. Ungoverned space in Syria and Iraq have been essentially the petri dish for them to grow and thrive. They've been now clearly becoming expeditionary. They moved into the Sinai, they're in Libya, we see them in Afghanistan. So this is the first attempt to move into Europe. And I think, unfortunately for us, this is clearly them. Every indication that I've talked to everybody, I've talked to folks at the Pentagon and the intelligence community, this is indeed ISIS. So we need to take this as a serious threat. We need to do 2 things rapidly. Double our effort to go after the headquarters and leadership in Iraq and Syria, work with the Russians to bring stability to Syria, and then look at stopping them globally from being able to do these expeditionary operations. That is no small feat, but something we have to very much take seriously now.
All right. Colonel Tony Shaffer, retired lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve, thank you so much for your insight.
Sure, thank you.